G'day Internet, I'm Brendan Gasper, this is Doom Eternal, and we're going to play level 1.
Against all the evil that hell can conjure, all the wickedness that mankind can produce, we will send unto them only you. Rip and tear until it is done.
We must pray now, brothers. Pray that he is watching.
Please, anyone, if you can hear me, if you're out there.
Attempting to acquire the Hell Priest signal.
Nearly 60% of our planet has been consumed by the invaders.
We have the Hell Priest signal locked in. The target is marked, but the signal will not hold for long.
For it is he that they fear, not man, or his armies. They fear the mark of the beast.
Use these weak demons to farm for resources. Possessed by the influence of hell, these once human underlings that follow in hell's ranks are those that have been corrupted and deceived by its power, forsaking their own humanity. Those who have fully succumbed to hell's control cannot be saved, becoming mindless, grotesque contortions of their former selves. Modification of the Praetor suit, the arm-mounted Doom Blade, is designed to increase the Slayer's short-range striking power. Strong enough to sever demonic flesh and bone, the blade's serrated edge allows the Slayer to break through enemy defences and attack where conventional weaponry is ineffective. Combat Shotgun. Despite the wealth of armament options for the modern combat specialist, this trustful workhorse remains a firm favourite among operatives. When matched against superheated plasmoids or Gauss-driven projectiles, the ballistic impact of the combat shotgun holds its own. The simplicity of the design ensures the weapon is extremely quick and reliable, yet the vast array of ammunition types make it versatile and flexible. Colloquially known as the crowd appeaser, a locked and loaded combat shotgun will pacify even the most riotous of assailants. Chainsaw. As the renowned weapon masters of the Night Sentinels professed, it is the warrior that makes the weapon great. Albeit an unconventional choice, the chainsaw has become a staple of the Doomslayer's personal arsenal. For the kind of work that requires enemy dismemberment, the chainsaw is the right tool for the job. Weapon mods. thralls, the Hell Priests oversaw the invasion of the mortal world. The thrall, slave titan of the underworld, carried the priest temples into the wake of battle, providing the priests with vigil of Hell's advance. From a strategically impervious emplacement, from their temple perch, the priests would emanate a powerful psionic influence, imposing greater coordination among the chaotic forces of Hell and increasing the battle effectiveness. The thrall, possessing superior resilience, proved indestructible by conventional weapons, thwarting all attempts by ARC defense forces. Only by severing the priest's psychokinetic tether could the Titan be neutralized, an act that could only be accomplished by infiltration of the temple itself. Soldiers. Once frontline infantry fighting to protect Earth from the demon invasion, the Hell soldiers had been claimed by darkness, turning them against their fellow soldiers in the midst of battle. Imp. Scavengers of the underworld, imps are among the most common of beasts found on the scorched surface of the hellscape. Lesser demons of hell, the imp possesses limited intelligence, driven only by a hunter's impulse to seek out prey, a task for which the imp is naturally suited due to its innate capacity for violence. As a result of these attributes, the imp makes an ideal foot soldier and is often deployed in the warring legions of hell, easily manipulated and controlled by the commanding highborn demons at the behest of the sovereign chapters. It is common for the imp to appear at the front line of an offensive attack, an expendable resource unleashed in great numbers to overcome and break through the enemy front.
Remains guarded! You can't...
has been terminated. The demonic consumption of Earth has been reduced by 36.8%. There are 2 Hell Priests remaining.
populations, part 1. Vega data entry. So I thought Vega was gone. Nearly 6% of the planet has been consumed. Nearly 60% of the planet has been consumed by the demons, with the rate of expansion increasing each day. The majority of the world population died in the first month of the Hell invasion, following the catastrophic failure of virtually every man-made system. Military response was immediate but only marginally effective at providing safe retreat to civilians, with many fortified locations cut off from outside communication. Facing overwhelming opposition, these makeshift fortresses have gradually fallen to the growing demon presence one after the other. Large portions of the Earth's surface have become uninhabitable, with swarms of demons scouring the globe and most regions suffering from an atmosphere that has become infected and poisonous by process of some form of alien terraformation. Carco Demon. Hunters of the Slothlands, the Carco Demon lurks at the bottomless and murky depths of hell in search of easy prey. An aimless wanderer, the Carco Demon is mostly devoid of cognitive ability, sensory awareness, and otherwise commonly occurring impulses. Driven only by a singular desire to feed, the Carco Demon is likely to appear wherever there is flesh to be consumed, bringing with it an insatiable propensity for hunger. It is said that the Carco Demon bears some resemblance to the cyclotic titans of ancient hell lore, leading Sentinel scholars to believe that the Forgotten Titans may yet live in some disembodied form. Arachnotrons are built with the genetic material recovered from the remains of the original spider mastermind, bioengineered for cyber augmentation. While its actual body exhibits only limited mobility, the oddly cerebral qualities of the Arachnotron make it the prime candidate for the impulse-controlled prosthetic frame that it now permanently inhabits. The UAC facility responsible for the Arachnotron's creation, intending to engineer and weaponize demons of their own design, was overrun after the outbreak occurred inside of its assembly plant, killing everyone inside. The facility, still operating under the directive of the administrative AI, continues to manufacture Arachnotrons autonomously. Heavy cannon. A common complaint among users of this punch-packing conventional weapon is the weight, as most of the component parts are forged in tungstronium, a proprietary alloy developed to withstand the enormous stresses imparted by the optional exploding dart ammunition. However, the additional weight makes the heavy cannon an ideal sniper rifle, as swaying and tremors are mitigated by the massive bulk. Trigger management is of the highest priority when using this weapon, as self-inflicted gunshot wounds are common thanks to its no-pull reflex trigger system. Auto map. Although several 100,000 more were safely evacuated out of orbit in the mass exodus following the invasion, the expected odds of survival is considered unlikely for many of these lifeboats carrying cryogenically frozen passengers. Religious iconography in communes are now commonplace amongst survivors, with the collective perception of events taking on a biblical nature. Many seek authority from a higher power to rationalize the sudden destruction of their world, believing these events represent a form of divine punishment. Equipment launcher. Custom built to fit the Doomslayer's Praetor suit, this shoulder-mounted ordnance system is modified to serve a variety of combat roles. Designed as a universal munitions platform, the equipment launcher is capable of altering its armament configuration with the press of a switch, activated by a reflex sensor located on the interior of the Praetor suit's gauntlet. In its flame belch configuration, the launcher spits a gale of fire exceeding 1000 degrees Celsius, setting even the sturdiest of demons aflame. While in its grenade launcher configuration, the launcher fires a traditional UAC model frag explosive, a projectile-based payload not dissimilar to that of the ice bomb, wherein the launcher fires an EYE C-40 gas canister to flash freeze nearby targets. Sticky bomb with a grenade in its mouth.
continues to inspire us. Brothers and sisters,
Following the total collapse of international civilization, nations and boundaries as we know them have ceased to exist. A handful of remaining bureaucrats, government officials, and military leaders have managed to survive by use of protective bunkers kept secret to the greater population. Convening under the flag of the Allied Nations, this governing body represents all that remains of the rule of law, forming what would essentially become a single world government. Military bases in communication with the AN have made efforts to regroup and centralise their areas of command, establishing fortified safe havens for survivors, stockpiling food and scavenging for supplies. Only proprietary military use communications remain functional, enabling military entities under command of the Allied Nations to coordinate in humanitarian aid and defence operations. By 2051, the formation of the ARC has taken highest priority and is considered to be, in all practical terms, the last hope for humanity. Tentacle. The subject of great scrutiny for ARC scientists on Earth, these hell-growth formations have appeared all over the planet, taking hold wherever hell has made its presence known. Forming chaotic, seemingly random structural patterns, the propagation of hell growth has taken root at an alarming rate, exhibiting a cellular reproduction cycle that ARC scientists fear may become impossible to contain. The resultant environmental effect is extremely hostile to terrestrial life, producing atmospheric biocontagions and a multitude of organic hazards. Wherever these nest-like formations emerge, they are protected by swaths of defensive tendrils, long thorn tentacles that demonstrate keen awareness of their surroundings, fully capable of disemboweling anything that it deems to be a potential threat to the nest. Cheat codes activate special modifiers in mission select. Example, all runes. Cheat codes save progression, but you cannot pick up items that conflict with your current cheat. Example, in-world runes are locked with the all runes cheat. Playing missions with cheat codes hides the Slayer key. Replay missions to find all items, finish all encounters, and experiment with locked weapons or upgrades.
Makyr is nearby. She is inside that demonic citadel. I will mark her location on your HUD. Hell Priests is located just above your location. My scans indicate there is a lift at the center of this facility.
Powerful practitioners of arcane magics, the Hell Priests have warped their powers to suit their insidious purpose, harnessing the dark forces of hellish psychomancy to prepare Earth for the final blood ritual. By blood were the Hell Priests bound to the dark ritual which now consumed Earth, and so long as even one of them lives, the consumption of Earth would continue, allowing Hell unfettered rule of the mortal world. Only by destroying the priests can the blood ritual be stopped and the Earth saved. I have to go to the bathroom. Okay, let's go. One of the three Hell priests, Nilox, is charged with ensuring that Hell's invasion of Earth succeeds. He prefers to operate on the planet's surface, working in his unholy barge carried on the back of a demonic titan. This provides him an elevated mobile position with which to oversee the campaign against humanity. Spiteful and cruel, Nilox frequently captures civilians alive so that the still living blood can be harvested for his occult rituals.
Khan Makyr is present at this gathering, but when outside of her domain, she is by all accounts indestructible.
How can this be? No man can pass through the gate. It is... This stops nothing! The sacrament of this world to the great Khan Makyr will be made, and the energy will be restored once again, as it is written, from the souls of the non-believers! You will not save them from their judgment.
Too far this time. You cannot interfere. This is humanity's chance to repent, to give service to us. You cannot resist the will of the Khan Makyr.
Activating the portal now.
For it was you who was meant to enforce it.
Alright, well that was Doom Eternal Level 1. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, remember to like and subscribe. and leave a comment. Yeah, check out some of my other videos. And peace out, homies.